The story begins with a drifting competition in Lolo Girl's empire. The name of the main character is Lin Xing. She is 19 years old, actually an ordinary 21st century student. 3 days ago, while on a date, she and her boyfriend got into a car accident. When she woke up, she found she was a 3-month-old baby in this world. She has 2 parents and 3 older sons. Her parents love their 3 older sons much more than the girl. Her father told the protagonist that if she gets the first place, the emperor will adopt her, and she will become a princess. He said that the happiness of their family depends only on her. In the future, her brothers will get married, and they will need money. The protagonist wondered what the emperor of this country was doing, suddenly choosing a commoner to be his adopted daughter. Lin thought it was an abnormal game. Newborn girls from all over the country are sent down the river, and the one who arrives first becomes the emperor's daughter. The emperor asked the fortune teller if he was sure his prediction was correct. The emperor asked if any of this crying rubbish would be able to save her son in the future. The seer asked His Majesty to believe him. He said that he had calculated everything, and it was safe to say that in 10 years, there would be a great catastrophe in the Lolo Empire, and their prince would die in that catastrophe. On that day, only a chosen girl will save the prince by sacrificing herself, and he can only choose her that way. It was an old seer of a Lolo Empire, Luo Tar. The emperor said that as long as he believed him and trusted him, this is the ruler of the Lolo Cio Leo Empire. The emperor noticed the protagonist and said that this little trash is a little different from the rest. IA was surprised that the emperor had already chosen the princess. He congratulated His Majesty and saw that he got a little princess. But Xiao told him not to hurry with the congratulations. He wanted to know for sure if she could become a princess of the Lolo Empire. Luo realized that the emperor wanted to use magic. He asked him not to use it because he would scare the people. He said his magic was too strong and would hurt them. But the emperor said that he had enough to talk, he knows his measure. At that moment, a dragon appeared and struck lightning in water. The parents didn't care about the competition, they had to save their children. The father of the protagonist was surprised at where the wave came from. His wife told him that the wave was so big that Lin Xing would take first place and become a princess. Later, her brothers would have money and wives. The protagonist was surprised as she was at what had just happened because it had just been quiet and peaceful, and suddenly a dragon appeared and raised such a big wave. The protagonist realized that she must try not to fall out. Other children will protect their parents, but the parents of the protagonist are so stupid that they will definitely not save her. In this situation, she could only rely on herself. This moment, the emperor noticed that the protagonist was doing something and thought that she was the chosen one. The emperor ordered the dragon to fly to him and transport the protagonist with him. At that moment, the girl's parents noticed that His Majesty's dragon had taken their daughter. They said that she is really the best, and when she becomes a princess, life in their family will change. The protagonist didn't realize what was going on. Did the emperor really choose her? The man took the girl in his hand and wanted to look at the little princess. He said that this rubbish was really ugly. Lin was surprised that he called her ugly. She thought he was a stinking emperor and would give him another chance to repeat what he said. The emperor threw the child to the fortune teller, saying that the girl would grow up first and if she was no good in 10 years, he would kill her personally. Besides, the palace does not grow useless rubbish, and when she is 3 years old, she will do small jobs. His Majesty has always hated women. All women who touch him have been killed by him, even the prince's mother. But this time, he touched this little princess himself. In the princess's chamber, a maid watched over the little girl. She gave her a bear cub and told her to play with it while she brought food. The woman told Catherine to hurry up because the princess was hungry. The main character's name used to be Lin Xing. An hour ago, the emperor adopted her, and she became the only princess of the Lolo Empire. She was given a new name, Sayachini. The maid who played with the princess was called Shiali, and the girl who sat in the other room is called Catherine. They are both personal maids of the main character who takes care of her. Catherine replied that she knew the princess was hungry and told her not to rush her. She shouted that the princess would not starve to death and told her to wait while she applied her makeup and gave her milk. The main character was very displeased and thought it was disgusting. Now she is only 3 months old, she is an infant and can only drink milk with great difficulty. She was able to become a princess and enter the palace. The protagonist didn't want to be ignored, she decided it was time to use a killer trick. The girl started crying very loudly. The protagonist scoffed because the princess of a majestic country was crying from hunger. The girl thought that the maid had to come out and feed her or the payback would cost her her life. At this moment, Catherine came out and said that the princess was fed to death and had had enough. The girl was very glad that the maid did come out and at last she would have some milk. At that moment, Catherine roughly took the girl and shoved a bottle of milk at her. Catherine said that she had already told her not to anger the elders and said that if the princess didn't drink the milk, she would kill her. The main character couldn't breathe, and her back hurt because Catherine was holding her too painfully. The princess was angry because she was a small child and too weak to resist her. At this point, Charlie took the girl away and asked Catherine how she could do this to the princess. The protagonist was glad that Charlie took her away, but she wondered why she did it so late since this bad woman almost killed her. Catherine replied that the girl was just an illegitimate commoner and that Charlie does treat her like a princess. They say that since that stinking emperor came to the throne, there have never been any women in the palace, even the mother princess Queen Cher died, but now there are women in the palace. The protagonist thought she was a little goddess who hadn't grown up yet. The protagonist thought Catherine was just a woman with breasts and a face, but if you think about it that way, you can understand her. Before she arrived, these chambers belonged to the Queen of Cher, it's no wonder that she thinks she's so unbelievable. And now she's insulting the girl. The protagonist thought that Catherine dreams that the emperor will pay attention to her and she will become the mother of the empire. At that moment, the girl noticed that there was someone outside the window and decided that it was the emperor. The girl thought that since Catherine can't wait for the emperor to visit her bed, she will help her. At that moment, the girl started to cry, thinking that such loud crying will attract the emperor's attention. Catherine asked the girl why she was crying again. She said that such a child is really difficult to serve. Shirley said that the princess was just frightened and tried to calm the girl down. The maid tried to keep feeding the girl, but she pushed the bottle. The main character thought she was stupid and wanted her to stop. After all, crying benefits children, and if she does it, she won't be able to see RYAT. At that moment, the emperor came in and asked why the princess was crying so much. Catherine was surprised and realized that this child's crying had caught the emperor's attention. She didn't want to let His Majesty know that it was she who had brought the girl to tears. The emperor was angry and said to quickly answer why the princess was crying so much, otherwise, they would both die. At that moment, Catherine fell on her knees and said that the princess was crying because Shirley didn't know what to do because apparently, the Majesty is angry, and he might kill Catherine. She didn't know what to say to save her. The protagonist was glad the emperor had come in time. She didn't want him to ask anything but just arrest the woman. At this point, Catherine said that it was all Sheila's fault and she was the one who brought the princess to tears. The protagonist thought that Catherine was a disgusting woman, the first to start complaining. The girl didn't want to let good-hearted Sheila get hurt. The girl decided it was time to show off her amazing acting skills, and the girl wanted the emperor to look at this little child with eyes full of tears. She wanted to ask him if he could see the look on her face and understand what she meant. Catherine walked over to the girl and told His Majesty not to be angry. She said that Sheila was still too young and didn't understand how to entertain people, and now she would calm the princess down. Shirley didn't know what she was talking about because it was obviously her who brought the little princess to tears. The protagonist didn't want it to even touch her. She was also angry that she had prepared such a wonderful performance and the emperor didn't understand. But she wanted to show that Catherine was bad and pushed her hand away. The emperor came over and told her not to touch her. He said she was his daughter, and he could kill her or hold her in his arms. The emperor took the girl in his arms and said that this little child was really ugly. It was funny to the protagonist because just now she was crying so hard, and now he decided to take her in his arms. The expression on the emperor's face showed that he thought she was cute, even though he said one thing and thought another. It was hard for Catherine to imagine that His Majesty could be so affectionate, and she did not want to miss this chance. The woman approached the emperor and hugged him. The main character thought the emperor was stupid and wanted him to see what was happening on her back. Her back was very sore because Catherine had grabbed her tender skin very hard. When the emperor saw this, the girl was overjoyed. It was only by looking at the look on his face that she realized he understood her. She didn't want him to let the insolent woman go. Catherine said that if His Majesty liked the princess so much, she could give birth to him. The protagonist did not understand how she dared to start talking about such things. The girl knew that the woman had every chance of dying prematurely. After all, the emperor was about to get really angry. The man grabbed the woman's hand and saw that there was blood on her finger. He ordered the guards to grab the woman and chop her into 8 pieces and throw her out of the palace. Catherine asked His Majesty what he was talking about. The protagonist thought the maid was a fool because the emperor had brought her and Shili to the palace only for them to take care of her. The cameraman said that all women in this world are just petty rubbish. The protagonist was angry because the little beauty in his arms is also a woman. Besides, how can he touch or judge all women on this planet? The emperor said his palace never needed women, and they entered the palace only to take care of the princess and nothing more. He said that if anyone had any other thoughts, he would immediately feed them to the dogs. Shirley bowed her head and said that she understood and would take good care of the princess. The princess thought it was the right thing to do, but Shirley was a good girl, and she didn't want to let her get hurt. At that moment, the emperor looked at the girl because her stomach was rumbling. CIO thought it was his fault that she was hungry. CIO told the maid to quickly feed the princess. Asked if the girl ate, Shili stroked her back and said she must be in a lot of pain. She was fine though, because she thought she could forget about everything while she ate. And at that moment, the emperor came and told the maid to move away. He took the girl on his arm, and she got angry because she hadn't finished her milk yet. The man told her not to move because he would heal her. She realized that she hadn't paid attention before, but the emperor was handsome enough. Then he used healing magic, and the girl was enveloped in a green light. The protagonist didn't realize if she was supposed to feel warmth. And the girl realized that the emperor's spell didn't work at all. The man was surprised that, contrary to expectations, healing magic does not have any effect. He decided to try another spell. The maid was frightened and told His Majesty that the princess only had a small injury, and it was not necessary to use so much energy because he would hurt her. The girl was enveloped in an even brighter green color. She realized that something had started to happen, and she was slightly blinded. She didn't realize what was happening, but suddenly her back felt cold. The protagonist wanted the emperor to explain to her what was going on. The wound on the princess's back healed a little. Shirley said that it was amazing because the princess could absorb His Majesty's magic. Shio looked at his adopted daughter's back and said that it was curious. The protagonist didn't understand what he was looking at and what was interesting on her back. The girl didn't understand what that look was, and she didn't like it. At that moment, the emperor started to go somewhere. The protagonist did not understand where he was taking her and wanted him to let her go. In the meeting room of the Lolo Empire, around the girl stood the commander-in-chief, the Imperial Guard, and the seer. The girl didn't understand what was going on and why so many people were looking at her. The seer told the girl to look at him, and the commander-in-chief added that she didn't need to be afraid. They used magic, and the girl's body absorbed her. The princess thought those little shining lights were very strange and didn't understand how they got into her body. The girl thought that people were mentally crazy because they had been looking at her for so long and doing nothing. The seer exclaimed that it was amazing. The commander-in-chief realized that magic had absolutely no effect on the princess. The princess realized that the little lights that appeared in their hands were magic. The girl realized that in this world, no one could harm her with magic. The emperor ordered another test. The man ordered the dragon to eat the little girl. The protagonist did not understand how this dragon would dare to eat her because it was a great loss. But just as the girl thought, the dragon stopped. The girl thought that she had been scared once and she would not be scared again. The emperor thought it was funny. It didn't matter if the girl was attacked with magic or healed, this child could absorb anything. But he thought it was a bad sign. He wondered if there might be something she couldn't absorb. The man took the girl by her clothes and said that everything that happened today must stay within these walls. He said that starting today, this child no longer has the title of princess, and let the palace maid Sheila take her away. He said that there was no need to take care of the girl as long as she didn't starve to death. The man realized that this secret must not be known in other countries, otherwise, this little girl would not live to be 10 years old. The main character didn't realize what the emperor was doing. She thought she had this amazing power and shouldn't she develop it, and he wants to lock her up in 4 walls. The seal realized that even though His Majesty was behaving like this, he was still thinking of the princess. Even though his attitude towards children was still very cruel, he thought it was a good thing that the princess was too young to realize this, otherwise, there would be resentment in her heart. His Majesty cares for this child, but because of his actions, the curse may reappear. At that moment, the curse appeared. I didn't realize what it was doing to him because it was unusual for him to worry about the safety of a small child. At that moment, he realized that just as he expected, the curse had reappeared. The main character's name is Sayaking. Since her powers were discovered 3 years ago, and her position has fallen, she has become a little maid who can be bullied by everyone. The main character was pushed in the back, and she fell down. An unknown girl said that the protagonist is as small as a beansprout, and her bodyguard didn't notice her and accidentally removed her like a puppy. It was 11 News, and the adopted daughter of Silio, she was 5 years old. After that stinking emperor abandoned the protagonist 3 years ago, he took your girls as his daughters. Unlike her, those adopted daughters have their own palaces and countless servants. All the princesses were named Shinfan and Mai. In front of 11 Yuchen stands Princess Shin. They say the emperor likes her best of all the princesses. She eats the most sumptuous food. The protagonist told the bodyguard that Princess Rain is saying the right thing, and it's her mistake. The protagonist forced herself to be patient with those people who humiliated her. She wanted revenge one day, but now she had no power or influence over the emperor. She must not act impulsively. She realized that she must silently endure and wait for the time to become strong. When the protagonist passed by, Genial slapped her and told her not to laugh. Genial said that if the girl realizes that she has dirted her bodyguard's feet, then let her clean them. Asia was watching all this. He said that Princess Genya was very young but already so evil. The man also said that he felt sorry for Princess Yuchen. The emperor answered him that the weak are unworthy of compassion and should be trampled. The seer told him that Princess Yuchen is only 3 years old, and even if she resisted, she would not be able to fight back against her 5-year-old Princess Jean. Besides, the guests of honor from neighboring countries have arrived today. It's an important day. The emperor didn't come to meet the honored guests but came to see the little princess. The seer thought the emperor was worried about the little girl. Shio said that age is no reason to be weak, and the seer agreed. The seer realized that the emperor was being cruel, but he knew that even though 3 years had passed, the man still cared for his adopted daughter. Every night at midnight, he went to the bed and watched. The emperor said the reason he paid attention to her was that if she died in 7 years, there would be no one to save his son. The seer realized that His Majesty now looked like a stubborn dead duck unwilling to admit his feelings. The princess was covered by a Shili blow. Jin's bodyguard kicked at the woman. Princess Shin thought there was no one in this big palace to stop her. His Majesty said the maid could not interfere with their conversation. Yuking told Shili to step aside and let her clean her bodyguard's shoes, or else the woman would be beaten to death. Shili replied that even if she wasn't treated like a princess, she couldn't let her clean the guard's shoes. If in the future someone finds out, she won't be able to marry. At the end, Princess Shin told her bodyguard Jaela that since she doesn't want to shine his shoes, he can keep beating her. He can kill them using magic. Princess Shin told him to kill them because they still had to join the banquet. At that moment, the bodyguard agreed and said that the princess shouldn't be late. He used magic, and a snake appeared, which enveloped the maid and the protagonist. At this point, the seer told the emperor that the princess had used magic. He told him that they could not let them find out that the princess was capable of absorbing magic, otherwise, his 3-year plan would be completely ruined. The seer asked the emperor what he would do, but the emperor disappeared. Shio used magic, and the dragon tore apart the bodyguard and his familiar. The protagonist saw this and remembered that it was the emperor's dragon. She was surprised that he had come to save her. Princess Shin was surprised and didn't know what happened. She realized that Galileo was dead, and his snake had been torn to pieces. The girl thought she should tell her father, and he said he knew. The girl realized that her father loved her the most, and he would definitely help her find the killer. The girl said that she was scared, but her father reassured her, saying that he was there for her. The protagonist was resentful of the emperor, but still, for 11 Eugen, he is still the favorite father. He showed up on time, and the girl didn't want anyone to know that she could absorb magic. Princess Shin asked her father to help her find who killed her bodyguard. The girl said she had to kill the bad guy herself and wanted revenge for Galileo. The emperor asked his daughter if she wanted to be killed too. He told her that she didn't need to look for the man who killed Galileo, he was right there in front of her. The man said that her bodyguard had done many terrible things that got him killed. The emperor said that he had not been able to punish him before because of the many guests. Princess Ren asked why His Majesty had abandoned her as she was his favorite daughter. The emperor ordered the maids to change 11 Eugene into a maid's costume and give her clothes to the protagonist. Jean didn't understand what had happened and why her father had fallen out of love with her. The protagonist was surprised that the emperor ordered to take off the clothes of the most favorite princess and give them to her. The girl thought that the emperor thought her life was too long. But the princess also knows that she is a little maid, and here she dared to wear Princess Chen's clothes. The girl was afraid of being called in the hall with the guests. An unknown voice asked Mello if she was coming. The woman replied that yes, she was coming to see how many princesses His Majesty has because they say that this time they will all be present. The woman asked Arya how many children she had in her family. The emperor of the Gagar Empire, with whom they have favorable economic relations, but in fact, his 18th prince had come, and as the woman said, she had no chance. Arya told her that she was sorry. She told her that these few years she kept wondering why His Majesty suddenly accepted and raised so many princesses. It turns out it was for marriage. When His Majesty entered the hall with the guests, he was greeted. The protagonist was surprised at how luxurious everything was. One man asked if the girl in the emperor's arms was the Princess Ren everyone was talking about. Another man replied that it must be so because if you looked at the girl's clothes, they were very luxurious. People justified her luxurious clothes by saying that she was the favorite princess. The other princesses were brought in by nursemaids, but she was brought in by the emperor himself with such splendor few can compare. When the girl and her father sat down on the chair, she felt that many people were looking at her, and because of that, she was a little nervous. At this moment, the emperor asked Jen who allowed her to sit here. The girl tried to say something, but her father used magic and threw her out of the table. The protagonist thought that this was too cruel. After all, wasn't 11 News a favorite princess? The girl didn't understand why the emperor was so cruel to her. The man put the girl in the place where Jenny was sitting and said that this place was suitable for her to sit. The man called her his Princess Eugenia. The girl decided that the emperor was treating 11 Eugene like that to avenge her. The people at the table were surprised that the girl was that Princess Yuchen, the princess who slept in the firewood room. People didn't understand how this could be because it was said that Princess Shan was the favorite daughter. 11 Eugene thought it was 11 News's fault that her father, the emperor, treated her like that. Jean thought that she still had a chance and would definitely kill the protagonist. The emperor turned to Suchen and asked if she was hungry and offered her something to eat. The girl didn't understand what had happened during these 3 years. He had been indifferent to her. The girl didn't understand why he was so gentle with her now. The emperor asked the protagonist what she was thinking about. The girl answered that she thought that the emperor was tired so he didn't need to feed her personally, he could find a servant to help a little girl eat. The emperor said it would be wise to find a servant to take care of Sayachini. The emperor told Saiyajin that she would now feed Princess Yuking. Other people were surprised that Princess Shin would serve 11 new kani. The main character was surprised that everyone was staring at her. Ren didn't understand why her father, the emperor, was doing this to her and making her work as a servant. The emperor asked her why she did not do anything but if she was resisting the order. The girl said she was obeying. 11 Eugene turned to 11 Yuchen and told the girl to tell her that she wanted to eat, and she would serve that too. Walton was feeding the girl. She thought it would be better if she choked and died.